You're listening to The KYLO Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. And in this week's episode, Danny and Brittany are spending the entire episode answering your questions. That's right, you asked and they're answering, and it starts right now.
Welcome to the KYLO Show. We're back, as always, every week. We're here for you.
We are. We're mixing it up today.
We are. We're going to do something that we've never done before.
That's not unusual for us, though, actually. It's harder for us to keep doing the same stuff.
Yeah. The traditions that we have for every holiday that we run into is what new thing can we introduce?
Yep, that's our tradition.
That is an odd tradition, but it is really the tradition that we have.
Kind of brave. You know, sometimes we have a pile of people over there like, we're going to try something new on you.
Sometimes I feel like always.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm sorry. That was terrible.
Yeah. I think they've worked out every time. We did macaroni and cheese for Thanksgiving. That was new. And Lincoln's critique on that is that it tasted like soap.
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 That's because it had weird cheeses.
Expensive, elegant cheeses that he didn't
and
think
he's not,
taste.
no.
I
like a hamburger with nothing on it. We went to McDonald's one time and they gave us 2 buns. Like, no. Like the hamburger, the meat's in there, but there's no condiments on there. But
yeah, we went to Costco and he got a hot dog. I said, "Do you want anything on it?" He goes, "I'm a plain guy."
I'm a plain guy.
Like,
kind of easy to please. Just throw a hot dog in that bun.
It was funny. So with that, we are just going to do a whole episode of questions and end with a testimony.
Awesome.
So we have some fun ones, and we'll navigate through them as we go and see how many we can get through in our time together. So it should be fun.
Okay.
All right. Well, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. The first question that we have to start off our new show that we've never done before is Evan.
Hey, Danny and Brittany. Thank you so much for doing the KYLO Show. Keep Your Love On has changed my life. Every time I get a chance, I send a copy to family or friends. So my question is, how, as a passive communicator, how do I go from being a passive to a communicator that has power, especially when it comes to confrontation? After reading Keep Your Love On, I discovered that I am a very passive communicator, which has helped me move away from it. But I want to know what are some points or pointers that can help those who are also passive communicators to move out of that and become assertive communicators?
Common question.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. I am a recovering passive communicator.
I am not. I'll let you lead.
Yeah, I think that it starts with value. You know, it starts with understanding that you have something valuable that you need, that you understand, that you can contribute. And it's practice, though. It'd be like, how do I get good at MMA? How am I going to get good? I go out there. I'm afraid of getting hurt. I'm afraid of getting hit. I'm afraid of getting knocked out. I'm afraid. I'm like, well, you probably will get all those things.
Yeah.
You probably get hurt, hit, knocked out. But if you surround yourself with people that are good at this, then they're going to train you and teach you, and not let you get away with bad habits, which is one of them is sending out the message, oh, you matter and I don't. Because that's the first thing that you have to hop over, is that I don't matter. That piece is hanging you up, and it's going to, you're going to live, part of Evan's strength is he's patient, kind, enduring, more concerned about connection than he is about being right or winning. So he's got all the traits of what would seem like somebody that is very long suffering.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that all of that strength turns into bitterness and resentment and stubbornness. So when he finally does flip the switch that he's hurt and disconnected, it's a war to get them to come back, because what they were communicating is, I don't have any needs. What they realized is, I feel oppressed. I feel hopeless. I feel used up.
Yeah.
And so when you feel those feelings, those are pretty hard to forgive.
Yeah.
Instead of, you hurt my feelings with that thing that you said this morning, not so hard. Last 25 years of our marriage, I hate you.
Yeah.
So those are pretty big consequences for not stepping into your courage, taking responsibility, and saying, I matter too. You matter. That didn't go away, but I matter too. And introducing that into the relationship, especially if you married somebody who's aggressive, that thinks they matter, but you don't. We agreed, right? I matter and you don't. That agreement's being challenged the day you step up and go, nah, you're going to be given some respect and some honor to this side of the relationship going forward. Now you've changed the relationship, and it's not just you having a struggle, so are they. Because that wasn't part of the agreement. That you never mattered before. Now who brought this? Have you been reading a book? You're like, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm married to the more passive communicator. That was Ben in the first part of our marriage. So he definitely had to go through all of that. And then he was met with the fire-breathing dragon of, what are you doing? This is not how we've agreed our marriage would be. To having value for him really came from him displaying something that's respectable. For my personality was what I actually needed. And so the more that he became assertive in his communication, the more I actually felt safe, and the more I felt like I could trust him, and the less anxiety I had around our conversations and conflicts. So, I don't know who you're having these conversations with, but if it's an intense personality, that's what I was seeking, and I wasn't ever getting it from him before. But the more that he brought assertiveness to our conflict, the less that I felt like I had to fight him in. And now it looks, sure, I'm still
the less
feisty.
you had to protect yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I would say I'm still feisty, and I'm still more intense always. But there's a different agreement in our marriage, because Ben decided to grow, and I had to grow with him with, what am I going to do with this scary person? And but I would just keep, if you can find community that's going to hold you accountable, do that. And if you can, maybe that looks like opening up your home and leading. We've got Life Academy, leading a course. We've got facilitators. You can become one of them. If you don't have that community, be someone that creates it.
Totally.
And don't just keep finding people like you that have the same problem. You have to be willing to find somebody that's going to ruffle your feathers, that are going to challenge you, and keep that value for yourself high, whether it's declarations, whether it's practice of, I think Ben and I both have conversations in our head before we ever have them. I do it so I can do a better job with my anger. I think Ben does it to bring more courage. And so that might be a practice that could be helpful as well.
And the good news is, you just have a bad habit of being passive. And habits can be broken and new habits can be formed. And so it's just going to take some time from that place of feeling valuable, that you begin to speak up, that you begin to challenge yourself, to be courageous, to stop the conversation, or to insert valuable needs or whatever. It'll feel mechanical.
Yeah.
You'll have to use the iMessages. It'll feel manufactured. Eventually, it will become more of a habit, and then it turns into your character. And that's just how I am, just who I am today. People think I'm, I've always been like this. Like, oh no, this is decades,
Yes.
decades of momentum you're experiencing.
Yeah, that's what people say about me with my ease of choices. So many years of practice that choices come. So, great question, Evan, and keep fighting for being an assertive communicator. It's a good thing. Awesome. All right, the next question that we have comes from Alicia.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. I am in my 30s and single, and I've always wanted to be married and have a family. While most of my friends around me are married and have children, it is really uncomfortable for me to be around them when they are arguing or just not treating each other with respect. How would you confront them and say, hey, don't you know you're living my dream? Treat each other nicely or get along, without coming from a place of, I just want to be there and I just want to be married. I just want to have a family, but really coming from what you have is a treasure, and guard it and honor that well. How do you distinguish the two and just come wanting to help them and remind them that what they have is a gift?
Great question.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it anytime I'm sitting at a table or in the living room and there's an interaction or exchange happening that is uncomfortable, in conflict between spouses. I'm not single, obviously, but it still has happened before. And, I don't know that it depends on how escalated it has gotten that I would interject, say, hey, all right, guys, this is getting a little rough. I'm not sure what is needed, but okay. Kind of like, a symbol clashing, like, hello, look over here. But if it's, the sarcastic put downs or the short exchanges over, if the potatoes are done or whatever people fight over, that's ridiculous. Usually later on, I'll have a conversation of like, hey, what was that about? Only because of my experience is in the heat of the moment, it's hard to kind of get into, I don't know, being the mediator or displaying how hard that was to watch or how sad it is to watch or uncomfortable, because that's the relationship I have with them. And I look up to them, or especially if you're single, that this is such a gift. It's painful to see, but I wouldn't say, depends on what it is, if you can really interject and jump into the mud pit in that moment, or maybe have a side conversation with each of them later on, potentially.
Yeah, a lot of this feedback is going to depend on the strength of the connection that you have with whoever you want to give it to,
Yeah.
So if it's your sister, then you might just jump up and scream,
what are
you're
you
living my dream, knock it off, you're doing a terrible job with my dream. I don't know, but it would be, I think it'd be valuable to give them a little
dose of reality.
shock, like, you are messing up this beautiful thing by the way you're handling it. Please adjust. Now, some people just have a culture of disrespect. They have a culture of dishonor, and your input feels disrespectful. Your input doesn't feel like a correction or a reminder. It feels like more of the same. Like, we try to control each other, now you're trying to control us.
Yeah.
And so that, if you're observing that kind of culture, then I'd do it one-on-one, like you were talking about, and I would say, wow, what is that? You have kids, you have this precious thing to protect. Why are you doing it this way? And maybe then share, have you listened to the KYLO show? Have you read any of these books? What is that? You can't be having any fun. You can't love that. And they say, oh, it's just always like this. And then they'll act powerless.
Yeah.
And so you drop the KYLO 5 on them.
Mm-hmm.
And, but they're only going to accept the feedback at the level that the strength of the connection can handle. I use the analogy of a footbridge. You know, if you have a connection the strength of a footbridge, you can't park a cement truck on it.
Yeah.
But if you have an overpass, a freeway overpass that's been built for it, then you can bring it full force. You know, you can bring the weight of a cement truck to your feedback because that's the strength of the connection. So just pay attention to that before you do it, and but do it, because that was great. You're living my dream. What are you doing?
Do you want to grow spiritually and relationally? Do you want to better understand yourself and others? Then you're going to want to join Danny Silk Insider. Danny Silk Insider is a membership where you get exclusive Danny Silk content delivered to your inbox each week. And you're going to want to join because this is stuff you probably haven't seen before. So if you want to become a Danny Silk Insider, go to DannySilkInsider.com and join today.
All right, the next one we have, it comes from Christy.
Okay.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. My name is Christy, and I would love to ask you a question from the standpoint of being a grandmother who loves what you guys teach and release. When my sons were in college is when I first encountered Danny's teaching, and it helped me with their relationships with me as well, even though they were young adults. So I love this stuff. But now as they're young men with children of their own, they don't want mom to tell them too much about how to raise their kids. So I would love for you to speak into how do I honor their boundaries and still impact their parenting and my grandchildren with some of the wisdom I've received from your ministry. Thanks, you guys.
Yep, that's a
dance.
That's a dance. We live with our grandchildren and our daughter and the father of her children, and we watch it. We watch it front row. We watch it. I think that they have a relationship with you, so that's where you use it.
Yeah.
You use it with how they're going to interact with you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to instruct their home and their parenting, but you will instruct their interaction with you. And so this is where the choices come in. This is where you would have them do most of the thinking. You're going to answer their questions with a question.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of that they are now building a relationship with their grandma in such a way that I have a different relationship with my grandparents than I do with my parents,
Mm-hmm.
just from the nature of the relationship, but also in a positive way because you're bringing so much respect and value for connection.
Yeah.
Now, if your son or daughter-in-law says, "How do you get the kids to help with the dishes when you're here?" Say, "Well, I offer them to do the dishes or to take out the trash, and as soon as we're done, we'll eat." "Oh, feed them until you're like, well, I need help and they need food. So we meet each other's needs. And that's our agreement."
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, that's great. I just scream and yell and do it all myself.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I read this book. I did this thing. I made these adjustments.
Yeah.
But you keep talking about yourself. You don't ever talk about them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to feel judged.
And that brings me to it sounds like she's wanting influence,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't just take influence. It has to be permitted.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you try and take influence, then the other person feels violated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the paying attention to the goal and the pursuit and giving these tools and wisdom is if you are inserting yourself as an influencer, you're going to be blocked out because you feel like a violator. And that's 100% not your heart,
Mm-hmm.
but that'll be the exchange. So just being mindful of developing that relationship with your grandkids is wonderful, and the culture that you're setting with them. And it does it 100%. I'm not a grandparent, but I was a nanny at 16, and I had these 2 little girls that I watched, for hours at a time, and we spent lots of time together. And my culture with them was very different than the culture they had with their dad, to the point where he asked me, "What are you doing?" Because they are different with you. They listen to you. They're respectful with you. And here I am at 16 giving this father advice on what I do. And then he starts doing it. And so the whole thing shifted, which was awesome. But all I did was my relationship. And that's where you gain influences through that permission.
Totally.
And so I'd be leaning and paying attention to, am I trying to take influence? Because that'll become dangerous, I think, for your relationship with your sons, and that's the last thing you want to do.
And she knows that.
Yeah.
She's like, I feel that.
Yeah,
They're not asking questions.
And then it's hard not to just want to jump in because you've got something great.
Yeah.
But it is a dance, like I said. So good question, Christy. Love it. All right, the next question we have comes from Chelsea.
How do you deal with when you do confront your husband about certain things about disconnection and you want that to change, but it continues to happen and he just condemns himself for being a bad person and not connecting and takes it personally? How do you deal with that?
Those are always hard. Hard when you feel like you're not able to make momentum or change, especially in marriage, I would say. That like you said earlier, sleeping with someone that is maybe no fun.
Yeah, and there's probably some other stuff going on there.
Yeah.
There's some personal issues for the husband, but I hopefully, the confrontations are happening in connection. Like, okay, we're disconnected. I'm going to work on getting connected, and then I'm going to bring up, I've been really feeling disconnected lately. I don't feel it right now, or I'm feeling it less right now, but I need to feel connected. And we've talked about this a number of times, and I don't understand your response. Do you need something from me? Because I think the thing he's feeling so bad about is she's probably really hurt and frustrated when she says, "Why are we here again?"
Yeah. And the key for me is, leaning into connection as best you can. And Ben and I have had our fair share of hard conversations, and sometimes it feels really hard to want to regain connection, to have a hard conversation. And I don't know that it has
Usually.
I don't know that when we say connection, it doesn't need to feel like we went on a date and we're so connected, we're lovey-dovey. For me, in those moments of having a hard conversation when we've been disconnected, is I'm coming to you with the goal of connection, and we're not in the heat of the moment, but we have enough space in between to where I'm able to put my emotions aside and to lean in and have a conversation where I want it to produce more connection at the end of it. But if I'm trying to address it right after the exchange, then it's just like gasoline on fire. But I don't know that the connection meter has to be at a 10. I think a lot of people are hoping that maybe that's what we mean by the reconnected. Sometimes it's at a 3.
Totally. Yeah, disconnected conversations are the setup for injury. And so when you come at a conversation like, we need to talk about being connected because I'm sick and tired of being disconnected from you. And I've told you 100 times. You're like, okay, you were disconnected when you started that conversation.
Yes.
So when I say get your connection back, it's exactly that. It's a 2 or a 3. It's like, here's a cup of coffee because I know your acts of service. I want to listen to you because I know your quality time. I'm gonna hug you and rub your shoulders because I know your touch. Here's some flowers because I know your gifts. Like I'm going to make the gesture that I care, I love you, it's so that
Yeah.
we have some kind of connection as we start to talk about the problem, which is we keep getting disconnected. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And I need some help. And how can I help you?
Mm-hmm. And I know for Ben, in our conversation, obviously I'm speaking for him, but I've seen, the struggle of feeling bad, feeling like a failure. It sounds like the husband's having a hard time with that. Having a community of men to kind of bring courage and help find truth to put him back in the game has been so helpful for our marriage, and really took a turn for Ben in the best way, because he stopped trying to do it alone. And that's what I don't know that all men are like this. I it seems to be common. I would generalize that there's this thing that men isolate in this area, and it doesn't really get repaired until there's a group of men that are able to push them back in this game and watch them find courage again. And that, if that's something that's available, maybe your husband will listen to this question being answered, or something you can encourage him to. But I remember telling Ben, you can go find some friends. I think I sent him to you, I don't know how many times. Go have a conversation with my father, because you're driving me crazy. This is normally how that went.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, if you have a pickup basketball league that you're part of, or, you play football or soccer or whatever, you have a tendency to want to stay in shape so that you can perform out there when you get there. And it's also a way to stay in shape. But if you get a group of guys together that have a commitment to high levels of respect and responsibility and connection in the family, with your children, with your spouse, that is another way of staying in shape, so to speak. Like we have a lot of conversations about this. I hear myself give advice that I'm not following. I hear other people's advice that I think that's really great. I'm going to try that. But if you stay in that environment and you stay kind of in the downspout of accountability, then you'll keep coming back with a connection to the priority of your relationships, and maybe some new things to try that you heard work for somebody else.
Yeah, it's great. Love it. All right. Good question, Chelsea. Our next one that we have comes from Alex.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the KYLO show. I was just wondering how soon is too soon to start using conversations like, I'm not sure what you need right now, but what you're doing right now isn't fun for me. That'd be great. Thank you so much.
I think we're on the other side of a disconnect, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Potentially on the other side of that, or scary red flag. I don't know what to do, so I'm throwing up a flag of I'm done.
Yeah. How soon is it?
Yeah.
I think that, we try to put too much weight on a connection too fast, and then we break it again, and then we think it didn't work. And like, it's less that it didn't work, and it's more that I over-tested our connection by the level of demand I put on it. So getting the connection back is, sometimes it can feel like we're glossing over and not dealing with issues. That's only true if you don't.
Yeah.
Like I got to be upset to deal with an issue. I got to be angry. I got to not care what happens to us. I don't care if I sleep on the couch. I don't care what happens. I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, no, you're upset.
Yeah.
You're disconnected. You're going to hurt somebody because you're hurting. Go get that 3-level connection. Send the message that you care. But as soon as your upset goes away, don't let that be the fuel of assertiveness. Let your standard for connection, your standard for truth, your standard for trust, let that be what leads. And keep bringing it up. And it's, you'll find out, like somebody kind of give you a look like, ouch. You're like, sorry, I think that hurt. I wasn't trying to hurt.
Yeah.
Would you like a cup of coffee? Would you like a back rub? Would you like some message that I'm not trying to injure us. I'm wanting a deeper level of connection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wanting, I'm needing to be able to truth you more than I have been truthing you.
Mm-hmm.
And truthing you is not, here's what I think is wrong with you.
Yes.
Truthing you is, here's my experience in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I feel scared to tell you that I want a deeper connection with you. I feel punished if I bring up a need. I need to be able to trust you, and that only is accomplished through truthing. So the practice back and forth, truthing each other, and once you truth someone,
mm-hmm.
what did you hear me say?
Yeah.
Would be a great introduction or invitation for the person to truth you back.
Yeah. I think, it sounds like all that you're saying, there's a conflict. And one of the thoughts that come to my mind are, if this, I know that I have brought intensity and attitude to a conversation, and Ben could totally shut it down with, I'm not going to have this conversation. So, he could totally shut it down.
I'm out.
Yeah. But he's asked questions of, you seem upset. Do you think this is a good time to have this conversation? Kind of asking me, like,
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be able to handle yourself, woman? It's really what he's saying in a really nice way. This is really how this is going.
Back away from the vehicle, man.
Yeah. And it just mirrors to me, I am bringing a level 10 and it is not necessary. So that helps me adjust to wanting to bring something different. And if I don't, that's when he gets to put the flag on the play and we're done with this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But those questions help me realize just that the goal is connection, that he's trying to create a safe place regardless of how I'm experiencing this. And so that's a helpful question for someone that might have a more intense personality than you. The joke now is he'll say, you're so intense. And that's a cue for, Brittney, you need to calm down.
I'm experiencing you as
and
danger.
and now I used to be offended and so angry when he would say it, but now I just kind of laugh and go, okay, I know what you're trying to tell me right now. Not needed. None of this is needed.
I love the conversation with Delaney the other day about salt.
Oh, yeah.
She made, for part of her schooling, is a cooking class, and she did this epic garlic soup and hit it with too much salt and ruined the whole thing.
2 tablespoons instead of 2 teaspoons.
Boom, and it brought up a memory of a young man that was in the youth group. I think he might have been one of the leaders in the youth group, and he was just intense. He was so intense. He was good-hearted and had great intentions, but he was so intense. And so he would constantly get these rejection messages from people, other leaders, people he was trying to lead. And he just was kind of left in a daze all the time. Like, why is everybody so...
Doesn't want to be around me.
Yeah, why they act like this? And I said, dude, you like salt? And he goes, yeah. I said, you are salt, okay? But when you are too much, you are too much salt. And you can season the food just to perfection, or you can ruin the food.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want my favorite food anymore because it's so nasty with salt.
Yep.
So you can't bring too much salt, and you have a habit of putting too much salt. I saw him
a couple months ago.
20 years later.
Yeah.
He said, "You changed my life one time." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Do you remember that conversation about the salt?" I said, "I do."
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. We were at our house.
Hey there, one more thing about Danny Silk Insider. You also have an option for a premium membership. That's right. What do premium members get? Well, they get 25% off all Loving on Purpose products. They get early access to events as well as meet and greet opportunities and a private monthly Zoom call with all the other premium members with Danny. It's awesome. So you want to join, and space is limited, so you're going to want to join today. Go to DannySilkInsider.com and become a Danny Silk Insider Premium member.
Well, those were some great questions.
Yes.
We had fun with those. So thanks for all of those. We have lots of questions, so we're having fun with having just a Q&A session.
Yep.
But
we're trying to catch up.
We are. We're trying to answer your questions. So we're going to do testimonies now, and this one comes from our friends Matt and Cora.
Oh, goodness.
Hi, it's really fun to give a bit of a testimony today for how the Loving on Purpose team and Keep Your Love On materials have impacted our lives. My name is Cora, and my husband and I, we run a charity called Restoring Connections here in New Zealand, Aotearoa, and we love seeing people reconcile and get along and work together, and that is definitely thanks to a lot of the tools that we have learned from with the Loving on Purpose team. So we came across the Loving Our Kids on Purpose material first with a friend of ours who saw how we were parenting probably and thought maybe we needed a little help. And he gave us the book to read, and then we bought the DVDs because we got hooked. And at the beginning probably wasn't so inspiring because we realized how much, the ways that we were going about things wasn't good, and the way that we were parenting. But we very quickly just realized how fun this was and how much we could grow in our ability to love our kids and give them choices and all of that. And so, and then somebody gave me a few years later the book Keep Your Love On for my birthday. And that just took things to the next level. We realized, wow, Matthew's from California and he has a Kiwi citizenship and he's from New Zealand as well. So that's happening over there. And then I'm French and Spanish. And how do we get along with all our different sets of values? So we were already pretty sort of interested in all aspects of reconciliation and mediation. We were already so interested in all this, but the book Keep Your Love On just took it to the next level. And so with that, we started to say, not only is it good for our couple, but this could really help others as well. So we sort of, grabbed anybody who was willing to go through the book and gather with us at our house, and the kids were joining, and we would just read a page each of the chapters. And it was really amazing, people crying and, revelation about, wow, this is so good. We need to grow in our ability to hear each other and to work together. So that was just really awesome. And that was so awesome that then we just decided we needed to reach out to Danny. This was just too good. So I'll give it over to Matt for this.
Yeah, I'll just pick up back to the beginning. Hi, my name is Matt. So rewind the clock a little bit from me. My challenges are around passive-aggressive communication. That's kind of a go-to naturally for me, which was not serving my relationships very well at all. And I remember at that time just feeling like I've got so much going on inside of me, so much emotion that I do not know how to express, so much frustration and pain. And so it's like, I know how to say what I'm feeling as long as it's really positive and happy, but how do I express feelings that are not so, wonderful to feel, and wanting to feel close to people, but, especially Cora and the kids and others, but not really knowing how to express those things and constantly trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be feeling. And so coming across Keep Your Love On and particularly Loving Our Kids on Purpose, it was extraordinary for me to have the revelation that what I'm feeling is okay. And that I can start there, but then work my way forwards towards, okay, how do I actually express this feeling rather than trying to feel the right thing? How do I actually give myself permission to feel what I feel, but then express it in a way that actually builds the relationship rather than, either completely stonewalling people or blowing their heads off, neither of which are particularly helpful, I've discovered. And so the communication tools are the bits that have just been so transformational for me. One night I was feeling incredibly grateful and in a bit of a courageous sort of a mood. It was probably about 2:00 in the morning down here in New Zealand, and I just found Danny on Facebook, or probably wasn't his real profile. I don't know, but shot him a message, and I just said, "Hey, what would it take to get you to New Zealand?" And to my absolute amazement, he fired back a message pretty quickly. When I'd woken up in the morning, there was a message saying, "We'd love to come." And so they came down and just blew our minds, spent some time with us, and just added massive momentum to everything that we do. So we are incredibly grateful for the whole team and highly recommend jumping on board.
Love those guys.
They're doing awesome work.
They are changing the world around them. They really are. That's quite a combo. California and Kiwi mixed with, and Cora's native language is French, so she's French, learned English, learned a whole bunch of Maori.
Yeah.
So.
And Spanish, I think
She probably speaks Spanish too. Yeah. She probably speaks German for all I know. They're amazing people.
Yeah.
They are great leaders. He's John Dawson's son. So John Dawson would be one of the higher ups of YWAM for a very long time. I'm sure he's retired, or he's doing other reconciliation work these days, but great man of God. And they're tons of respect for his dad.
Always love the testimonies of just really applying Keep Your Love On in the community that they're at, and just the stories of reconciliation and just influencing culture that keeps the Maori people their culture, but inserting connection and love and trust in a new way as well. That's given them so much influence, and it's been really beautiful to hear those stories.
It's really powerful what they're doing. They are reconciling, local native Maori tribes with each other, within their various locales, but also with the white community. And so there's just tons of hurt and disconnection, and Matt is actually a welcome part of that community, so much so that he's an advisor and a leader, and they together play a valuable bridge back and forth in the community.
An overpass.
So you can park a cement truck on, right?
All that work.
Yeah, they've done the work. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So much fun.
Yeah,
love hearing people take the KYLO principles and just the different things that have come from Loving on Purpose, and adding their giftings, callings, and assignments, and watching it flourish, and God his hand just being on it. So they are definitely doing that, and it's really, really fun.
It's beautiful.
So it's fun to know that in New Zealand, whole healthy families are saving the world through two fantastic people that got a hold of our stuff. So good job, guys.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our Q&A session. We had fun, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to join us next week when Danny and Brittney dedicate another episode to answering your toughest and biggest questions. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Don't forget to submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The KYLO Show is produced by Ali Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck, Anna Hill, Leah Alexander, Sherry Silk, sound engineer and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Christian Zamora. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.